The webinar will begin in 10 minutes. Please stand by. Welcome to today's webinar. This is part of a year-long medical webinar series on aging and longevity, an initiative of the Mu Sigma Phi sorority in celebration of its 85th year, in cooperation with the UP College of Medicine, the UP Medical Foundation, and the Mu Sigma Phi Foundation. The beneficiary for this project is the National Institutes of Health Institute on Aging. This webinar series runs every second and last Friday from January to November 2019 and delivers interactive medical lectures by prominent specialists here and abroad on common medical conditions in the geriatric population. The webinars are free and open to all physicians, healthcare professionals, and medical and allied medical students. CPD units for MDs, nurses, and pharmacists will be provided. Registration is free. If you have pre-registered, you only need to sign in for attendance check. Otherwise, please register on-site. Just click on the links for today's webinar at the bottom of the UPM livestream window or in the description box of FB Live or YouTube Live. This is an important step that you need to do to have your attendance recorded and to receive the link to the evaluation form. Once you sign in for attendance, the post-webinar confirmation email will be sent within 12 to 24 hours. And check your spam folder, and if our emails landed there, mark them as not spam. We are now using UP Manila Livestream, FB Live at Aging Webinars, and YouTube Live at Aging Webinars channel. If you are encountering problems in internet connectivity, kindly refresh the page. For UP Manila Livestream, kindly turn up the volume using the audio icon. For other problems, please refer to the downloadable guide at the bottom of the livestream window. The webinar lecture will run for 20 to 30 minutes, followed by a question and answer portion. Ask questions or comment by typing into the UP Manila Livestream Q&A box on the right lower corner of your screen, or type into the comments box in FB Live or YouTube Live. A link to an online evaluation form will be sent to your registered email addresses 2 days after the confirmation email is sent after the webinar. Please answer the online evaluation form to receive your certificate in your registered email inbox around 2 to 4 weeks after the webinar, depending on the number of participants and CPD unit approval. The webinar will begin in 5 minutes. Please stand by. Welcome to today's webinar. This is part of a year-long medical webinar series on aging and longevity, an initiative of the Mu Sigma Phi sorority in celebration of its 85th year, in cooperation with the UP College of Medicine, the UP Medical Foundation, and the Mu Sigma Phi Foundation. The beneficiary for this project is the National Institutes of Health Institute on Aging. This webinar series runs every second and last Friday from January to November 2019 and delivers interactive medical lectures by prominent specialists here and abroad on common medical conditions in the geriatric population. The webinars are free and open to all physicians, healthcare professionals, and medical and allied medical students. CPD units for MDs, nurses, and pharmacists will be provided. Registration is free. If you have pre-registered, you only need to sign in for attendance check. Otherwise, please register on-site. Just click on the links for today's webinar at the bottom of the UPM livestream window or in the description box of FB Live or YouTube Live. This is an important step that you need to do to have your attendance recorded and to receive the link to the evaluation form. Once you sign in for attendance, the post-webinar confirmation email will be sent within 12 to 24 hours and not immediately. To ensure that you receive your certificates in your inbox, please be reminded of the following. Make sure that your details are complete and spelled correctly, especially your names and registered email addresses. Please do not abbreviate. Example, yahoo.com into y.com. Ensure that your email inbox is not full and add these email addresses flashed on your screen to your contacts. Check your spam folder, and if our emails landed there, mark them as not spam. We are now using UP Manila Livestream, FB Live at Aging Webinars, and YouTube Live at Aging Webinars channel. If you are encountering problems in internet connectivity, kindly refresh the page. For UP Manila Livestream, kindly turn up the volume using the audio icon. For other problems, please refer to the downloadable guide at the bottom of the livestream window. The webinar lecture will run for 20 to 30 minutes, followed by a question and answer portion. Ask questions or comment by typing into the UP Manila Livestream Q&A box on the right lower corner of your screen, or type into the comments box in FB Live or YouTube Live. A link to an online evaluation form will be sent to your registered email addresses 2 days after the confirmation email is sent after the webinar. Please answer the online evaluation form to receive your certificate in your registered email inbox around 2 to 4 weeks after the webinar, depending on the number of participants and CPD unit approval.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Donna Parala, Mu Sigma Phi Sorority, Batch 1987, speaking in behalf of the Aging and Longevity Webinars team of the Mu Sigma Phi Sorority. We are streaming live from the video conference room of the UP Manila Information Management Service. Our time in Manila is now exactly 12 noon. We have participants registered from all over the Philippines and other countries as well. For today's webinar, we are privileged to have a distinguished alumna of the UP College of Medicine, Class 1987. She is an infectious disease specialist and finished her fellowship in infectious diseases in UPPGH in 1998. She serves as an associate professor in UPPGH, is currently the section head of the Adult Medicine Department of Medicine in PGH from 2016 to present, and is also the section head of the Infectious Diseases section at the Medical City from 2011 to present. She is a multi-awarded physician and scientist, and most recently, she received the UPAA Distinguished Alumni Award in Health Research and Education from the University of the Philippines Alumni Association in 2018. Civic-minded and involved, she spearheaded many national projects that aim to fight infectious diseases. Because of her great passion and hard work, has won the Philippine College of Physicians Exemplar Award for Distinguished Researcher of 2019. Amidst all of this, she is also a mother of 7 wonderful children and a soon-to-be grandmother. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our distinguished lecturer, my classmate, Dr. Regina Pascua Burma.
Hello, everybody. I'm very honored and privileged to be here this afternoon to talk to you about vaccination in the elderly. Thank you, Dr. Parala. Dr. Parala and I are classmates from before. Pag hindi ako maka-insert ng line, tinatawag ko siya. So it's Parala Pascua. So we're really, really close. So anyway, these are my disclosures. So I've really been going around talking about vaccines, and I've borrowed some of the slides from my usual lectures from MSD, Sanofi Pasteur, and Pfizer. So the objectives of this talk would be to update us on the information about the 2019 vaccination recommendations for the elderly, provide information and evidence for the basis of these recommendations, and to show evidence that these vaccines really work. Let me just digress a little bit and talk to you about the immunity program of the Mu Sigma Phi sorority. So the Mu has really been very strong about the advocacy for vaccination. So this slide was made by the CSES in, I think, 2012 or 2013, but it's so beautiful. I always try to use it for some of the advocacy lectures we have. And the message, whether it's for adolescents, for communities, for students, and for other populations, the message is the same. The ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So all of us should get vaccinated and immunized, and it's a good way to protect ourselves. There is enormous amount of evidence that vaccines really work. Dapat di na natin yan masyadong isipin na maraming problema related to vaccines. Vaccines really can extend lives, as seen in this slide from Global Health. There's millions of cases of infectious diseases prevented and millions of lives saved because of vaccines. And the economics are just very staggering. So these are the amount of lives saved and the money that is saved when you avert the development of certain infections. Okay, perhaps the most memorable of the really bad infections in the past that were problematic is this one, and how vaccines as a public health strategy, eliminated this very difficult, life threatening infection in the past. And students, you know what this is? This is smallpox. We don't see it anymore because exactly it was eradicated by vaccines. There was a time that smallpox was such a threat that when there's smallpox, people would really not go to communities. But in May of 1980, after the vaccines have been around for a while, smallpox, WHO declared the eradication complete. And the last known case is this 3-year-old from Bangladesh uh, in 1978. So that's a significant accomplishment. And this is actually over and over again, repeatedly declared by many bodies right now. So, for example, in the United States, way back in 1999, vaccination was declared as the number one public health achievement that made a difference in the lives of people. So we have to just bear in mind that immunization really saves a lot of lives, and it has done so in the last 50 years and hopefully in the next many years. Okay. So how do vaccines work? So these are again some borrowed slides from the history of vaccines.org telling us that when we are younger, we have this way of producing quote unquote our protection when we are vaccinated. So vaccines serve like a pathogen imposter. So kunyari, para siyang bacteria or virus. And that's the amount that you give to the patient when you deliver it as a vaccine. But it attracts a lot of the immune cells, like the T helper cells and the B cells, eventually producing the antibodies that we want, so that eventually you have enough antibodies so you are ready or immune ka na when you in the future are exposed to the actual bacteria or virus. There's another way pathway wherein more T cells are recruited so that it actually tries to destroy infected cells. Okay. So what vaccination programs try to do is to try to get more and more people to be vaccinated so that communities get that kind of herd immunity. So that someday, if the pathogen is actually encountered by the person who already was vaccinated, there will be enough immune system, di ba? Ready na siya to protect himself because previously the antibodies have been produced so that the pathogen is eradicated or controlled by both mechanisms. Okay. So, all of that actually translates to recommendations for immunization. And we will just deal with the elderly group right now. So, para hindi natin makalimutan, right now, let's talk about ano ba yung recommended. So, by now, all persons when they reach adulthood must be already complete with the hepatitis B vaccine. And as elderly, we are recommended to get the influenza vaccine. Here in the Philippines, the distributed vaccine is the Southern Hemisphere strain. And the recommendation now is to get the quadrivalent type of influenza. There's also the pneumococcal vaccine. There's two types, polysaccharide, the PPSV23, and the conjugate vaccine, the PCV13. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The third vaccine is the dati DPT tawag sa kanya now. It's Tdap, tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. And finally, a recommendation to get Zoster. This is aligned with international recommendations. That's the ones I showed you, sorry, is from the Philippine Society of Microbiology and Infectious Disease. So these are local recommendations and they are aligned with the international recommendations, just like from the United States CDC, the group of the ACCIP. So here, when you look at these tables, the way to look at it, if you're trying to just zoom into the elderly group, would be to look at the columns that talk about the recommendations for 50 years old to 64 years old and older. And you'll see yung yellow colors indicate that this is recommended for adults who meet that age group. So again, just like in the Philippines, the CDC recommends annual influenza shots, Tdap doses, and the Zoster and the pneumococcal vaccines. I included this table because when we get older, usually we have these illnesses already. So all the more that we see that when we are elderly and we also have various illnesses like chronic lung disease, chronic heart disease, chronic liver, and so on, then it's more an indication to go ahead and get your vaccines. So to summarize that part, for elderly, we are recommended to get our annual flu shots. Our pneumococcal vaccines, there are two types. There's one that is given lifetime and another that is given every 5 years. There's the tetanus shot that must be given every 10 years and the zoster once lifetime. Let me talk a little bit about the influenza vaccine. No? So usually parang we downplay the burden of influenza. We just say, trangkaso lang yan, it's okay. But this is a very highly infectious, contagious, and can potentially be a serious disease. So is there influenza in the Philippines? In fact, it is among our top 10 causes of morbidity. It's listed here as number 6. Here, let's look at the graph on your right side. You would see that cases start to go up during the quote-unquote flu season. In the United States, the flu season is a little bit more distinct. Usually that starts off around December and lasts until around early March, yung winter season. Dito, because we don't have winter, we sometimes think there's no flu season, but it starts off here. You would see here as starting off around the rainy months, no? So June. So doctors should start vaccinating their elderly patients mga May, when the vaccines for that year is already released. Okay. Until around end of October. Influenza causes a significant economic burden, so there's a lot of cost, both direct and indirect. Direct means hospitalization, consultation, absenteeism, and indirect, all of those anxiety related to influenza. Influenza risk groups include many age groups, but one of the more important ones are the elderly groups. Okay, so annual vaccination is now recommended for all persons more than 6 years old, and the vaccine could be given IM or intradermal. There are several brands of vaccines available, and recently, actually, there's a quadrivalent type already introduced in the last 3 or 4 years. High-risk individuals in other countries, age 65 or residents of nursing homes or those with chronic illnesses. No? If you look back at the history of influenza vaccine, used to be, siguro nung before pa nung nag-aaral pa tayo, before 2005, it used to be patients more than 65 years old were the ones recommended to have this vaccine. And then later on, they changed the recommendation. The age group became younger, 50 years old and older. But now, because of the recognized burden of influenza, it is now recommended to all individuals, including healthy individuals like all of us. There's studies that show that the benefit of giving this is CPB or clinically preventable burden. You would see here that according to age group, you would see that the potential for averting influenza or influenza-like illness reaches in this cohort up to millions, no, for ages starting at age 50. And the cost effectiveness, the more we vaccinate, the lower the cost. So that when we vaccinate people more than 65 years old, you would see that the net cost per person vaccinated is already down to just $4. So there's cost effectiveness issues and really benefit in terms of clinical outcomes. There were studies of country programs to try to avert outbreaks of influenza, just like here in the United Kingdom, where they tried to see the impact of having a vaccination program. And you would see here that there's really cost effectiveness. That means when people are vaccinated versus no vaccination, there's less economic cost to everybody, including a system, the health system of the country. So maybe it's something we might want to think about. This is a tornado graph, and this is how a good tornado graph should look like. It's very slim at the bottom, telling us that the cost per person is less and there's more benefits in the top of the graph. So this is UK experience, and the same has been experienced by Canada, wherein at a certain point, the province of Ontario decided to have a universal influenza vaccine program for all. So it became free for all. And what they experienced was there was really a significant decline before, that's the pre universal program and the post universal program. You would see that there's significant difference or significant drop in the consultations, in the office visits, in the emergency room visits, and total hospitalization. And when you look at their tornado graph, it looked very similar to the UK tornado graph of seeing that there's really economic benefits. So from an individual point of view and a country point of view, it looks like there is economically some attraction and benefit for all. Okay. What about in the Philippines? Do we really have influenza in the Philippines? So when there are pockets of studies like this looking at what's happening in the Philippines, they see that yes, there is activity in various communities. May mga spikes na nagkaka-outbreak during certain times of the year. So as I said, there was a recent shift in the type of flu vaccine. If you remember in the past, we used to recommend the trivalent, mostly influenza A. But more and more, they've been seeing that when you look at exactly what strains of influenza are going around, there's now more and more influenza B being documented among patients with influenza-like illness, just like here. So the B is the blue. So in the recent years, there's more blue in the documented strains of influenza. And the same seems to be like a global experience, not just in Asia, but also in Europe and the Americas. Okay. So 1 decade ago, our graphs looked like this. No? So influenza A is the yellow part here, the yellow component of the bars. and influenza B is the blue portion. So in the last several years, there's a little bit more B, and that's why it became important that the B part becomes a new part of the quadrivalent vaccine. Okay. So there are various lineages of influenza B present now in the Philippines. Um, this didn't come out very well, but it's the latest charts of the influenza mapping in the Philippines. There's a flu net, and we can get very up to date numbers on influenza. Here we see that the B are the blue and the green, so they're present here. 2019 is in this part, the right part of the graph. It's sort of been quiet in the last several weeks. The x-axis are in weeks. Pero di ba, you remember nung January, parang biglang ang daming flu-like. So that was seen in the start of 2019 with tall graphs, tall bars, documenting the etiology of those influenza-like illness to be actually influenza. Okay, so I have time for some more pneumococcal vaccines. So sa Filipino, we say contrapulmonia or anti-pneumonia shots. Pneumonia, one of the more important bacteria that causes the usual community-acquired pneumonia is a bug called Streptococcus pneumoniae. And it causes a really broad spectrum of illnesses. It's not just pneumococcal pneumonia. It could be the invasive type of pneumococcal disease such that it can also cause meningitis, yung sabi, pneumococcal meningitis, or bacteria. So here, the recommendations for this vaccine is really for elderly persons and for those with. We've seen that the incidence of pneumococcal disease really increases with age and with certain. If you look at how some of the persons with these types of conditions, their risk for pneumococcal that comes is much. So there's now two types of people usually ask, oh, baka. So the old one is this new one, the good one. If you look at their mechanism for producing desired immunity, they're a little bit different. So the reason why you could get away with just vaccination is that it triggers series of responses that a little bit more from the cell activation memory, so that even if you are encountered years later as added capacity. The first one, the one on top, the vaccine needs to be given every 5 years. Access to strengthen or increasing the antibody level. So, if you think about it, parang people say, TPB 23, ano lang bibilin ko kasi parang daming serotypes. Actually, there's some overlap, they're not. There's like many serotypes. There's a little bit of overlap, but essentially, they're both good. So who would benefit from the pneumococcal vaccine? These are that are best given. So here we say that patients who are belong to the elderly group or those with some chronic illnesses should receive the pneumococcal vaccine. Again, there are some studies showing that they really do have benefit in improving survival and preventing pneumonia. So there are it's usually the PPV 23 that has these RCTs because it's been around for a while. And we see the drop in the significant reduction in the incidence of pneumonia and all-cause pneumonia for both group, for vaccine group compared to the placebo group. Here we see the mortality benefit. So when the vaccine is given, the blue line, there's higher proportion of survival, no pneumonia. So it's a significant drop in the risk for the occurrence of pneumonia. Okay. The third vaccine, lapit na tayo matapos. Third vaccine is the zoster vaccine or shingles. If you have somebody at home who had shingles, you'll realize just how painful this could be. So we've seen that this again increases in occurrence as you grow older. So the zoster vaccine tries to reduce the risk for the occurrence of the zoster disease, even in the presence of latent infection. Okay, so this is available and usually given once in your lifetime as well. This could be a very, very painful experience, even if the lesions disappear usually after 7 to 14 days. The pain called the postherpetic neuralgia may be one reason why you would like to get this zoster vaccine. Okay. Again, age is among the more important risk factor for the occurrence of zoster among patients who have had uh, zoster varicella infections before. And the recommendation is a single dose for all adults 50 years or older, regardless of previous history of the herpes zoster. Okay. This is the last one I wanted to talk about, and I really just wanted to show a picture. Kala natin wala nang tetanus, but we still see them every once in a while. I always tell the patients when you go to the emergency room for some complaint of like a traumatic wound, usually you get a tetanus dose. Okay, so just try to recall when that was and make sure you have a booster every 10 years. So the recommendation now is for adults 19 years and older. You need one-time Tdap booster, even after you've received your DPT as a child. Diba? All of us may have had received our DPT as children. We should get at least one-time booster of Tdap, and then later on, just the tetanus toxoid every 10 years. Okay, I just want to just go through some facts versus fake news. Ito. Are vaccines safe? I heard on the news that childhood vaccinations might cause autism. So the answer is yes, vaccines are safe. There's no scientific evidence that it causes autism. I was vaccinated before and get vaccinated again. Will I overdose on vaccine? Kasi minsan hindi mo maalala. So no, no such thing as overdose. Can I get kaya lang sayang kasi yung money. Kaya dapat alam mo kung nabakunahan ka na and get that documentation uh, kept somewhere. Okay? Can I get all the vaccines at the same time? So, di ba ngayon, oh, sorry. Yes, all vaccines can be administered at the same time. But usually, ayaw mo rin gawin sobrang dami. No? At most, I just vaccinated the
One
right
on
and
each.
the left. What if I miss a dose? In general, increasing the interval between doses, does not diminish the effectiveness of the vaccine, but makes you forget that you need the next dose. So and decreasing the interval between doses may interfere. So when, let's say, the hepatitis B is month 0, month 1, and month 6, then stick to it. Okay. All right. Another myth is better hygiene and sanitation will make diseases disappear. Therefore, vaccines may not become necessary anymore. So the answer is it's a false. So it says in this long paragraph that while better hygiene, hand washing, and clean water will help protect people from infectious disease, many infections can spread regardless of how clean we are. For example, yung measles, di ba? Yung recent experience natin with measles. Okay. Myth 4. Vaccines have several damaging and long-term side effects that are yet unknown. So vaccination can even be fatal. So that's a false statement. And vaccines are very safe. Most vaccine reactions are usually minor and temporary. And very serious health events are extremely rare. They need to just be investigated well. Giving Lola more than one vaccine at a time can increase the risk of harmful side effects, which can overload Lola's immune system. So, scientific evidence show that giving several vaccines at the same time has no adverse effect on a person's immune system. Our elderly patients are exposed to several hundred foreign substances that trigger an immune response every day. All right. Lapit na. 2 minutes na lang. Influenza is just a nuisance and the vaccine isn't very effective. So that's really very false. No, influenza is real. It can kill many people worldwide. Pregnant women, small children, elderly people with poor health, and anyone with chronic condition are at higher risk for severe infection and death. Therefore, vaccine offers immunity to the prevalent strains. Vaccines, myth 7, vaccines contain mercury. Panayan ko naririnig which is dangerous. So that's a false statement. No? So this is the statement of the vaccine group. Thiomersal is an organic mercury containing compound added to some vaccines. It's a widely used preservative and it's safe. Okay. No evidence to suggest that this poses a health risk. Okay. So ano naman yung true facts, no? True recommendations, the real facts. The fact is, immunization is perhaps the public health's best buy. And for elderly, again, I review you. It's influenza, pneumococcal vaccines, Tdap, and Zoster. I would like to, again, go over the top 10 reasons why adults should get vaccinated, because there are vaccine preventable diseases, can keep you healthy. Yeah. Vaccines are as important to your health as diet and exercise. Sometimes vaccines can mean the difference between life and death, especially if somebody comes in with a pneumococcal pneumonia which you think could have been prevented kung nagpabakuna. Vaccines are safe and effective. Vaccines won't give you the disease they are designed to prevent. Young and healthy people can get very sick too, and vaccine preventable diseases are expensive. When you are sick, your children, grandchildren, and parents are at risk too. That's number 9. And actually, in the United States, isa sa mga incentives nila is when they're the elderly, they say, you need to be vaccinated because you're going to take care of your grandchildren. So you need to be strong
Incentivize.
and not pass on the infections to them. And finally, you have to think that maybe you, your family, and your coworkers need you, so you need to stay healthy. So sometimes it's really a cost issue, but we always say that the benefit outweighs the cost when it's about immunization. Okay, the last part is about the new app. If you didn't get everything I talked about, then there's this very wonderful new app, the app that's currently available in the App Store. Okay, you could see there, I tried to just screenshot that. It has a very good review points. It's 5/5, so very good. This is what you will get when you download the app. This is the legacy of the Music Murphy sorority. It's a really good um, contribution, I say, to mankind. It has, you can leave it in your phone or in your iPad. It has videos, FAQs, and guidance as to how to work out what vaccines you need. So, just as a last point, let's really try to take care of our parents, our lolas. Let's just offer them the vaccines that are very safe. Um, yeah. And the last part, I really like that because I'm going to be a grandparent soon. God loved us so much, He gave us grandparents. So, yeah, this is the saying from Louis Pasteur. He said that when meditating over this disease, I never think of finding a remedy for it, but instead a means of prevention. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Burba, for the comprehensive, very enlightening talk. We now have 34 viewing using live stream, 77 through YouTube Live, and 456 through Facebook. And there are other groups viewing us all over the Philippines. The floor is now open for questions from our audience. Just type your questions at the Q&A chat box in the right lower corner of the live stream window, or type in comments in YouTube Live, or send personal messages to FB at Aging Webinars for Facebook Live viewers. Okay, let's start the question. Okay, this is from Ella Miranda. Are those aged 84 years old and above still, I think, amenable for any vaccination?
The answer is yes. You should still get your annual flu shots and then get yourselves updated with the pneumonia shot. Okay. It's good to keep like just some kind of a notebook or a card that reminds
Just
you.
like the pedia
Oo,
patients.
because when we get older, we sort of start forgetting what we received before, or sometimes when you move from one doctor to the next. So, like the pneumonia shot could be just once lifetime. So, when you've received it before, you don't have to get it again.
And what is the brand of the PCV13 for adults? Is it the same or different from Prevenar for kids?
The PCV13 is the Prevenar.
Please discuss the current protocol for giving the 2 pneumonia vaccines for the elderly.
So, if you haven't received a pneumonia shot before, the best recommendation is to start off with the Prevenar 13, the PCV 13, and then after about 4 to 8 weeks, you can give the Pneumococcal 23, and then every 5 years thereafter.
Okay, and can cancer patients receive also vaccines?
Yes, cancer patients and those with very low immune system, like HIV patients with very low CD4 counts, we usually try to get you not exposed to the live attenuated virus vaccine. So like the measles, the chickenpox vaccines, we wait for HIV, we wait for their CD4 counts to go up. For the cancer patients, let's stick with the attenuated vaccines or the antigenic vaccines, not the live ones.
Okay. Sometimes quadrivalent flu vaccines are not readily available. If so, are trivalent flu vaccines okay for the elderly too?
Yeah. So if you have a choice, I would go for the quadrivalent. Pero sometimes you don't have a choice kasi hindi available yung quadrivalent. Or sometimes the trivalent is given for free. So I still tell the patients, well, if it's given for free versus none, maybe you should go ahead and get the trivalent anyway.
Okay. And what are the guidelines on lifetime pneumococcal vaccine? If given the regular vaccine already, when can they avail of the lifetime dose?
If you've received let's say you received the 23 vaccine, the pneumonia 23 vaccine, then you can ask your doctor to just go ahead and give the PCV 13 at any point in between. It's safe.
Okay. What allergies do we need to assess before giving pneumococcal vaccine or influenza vaccines for elderly people?
So
I think she's referring to hypersensitivity reaction to the vaccine. So if the patient has allergies, how do you distinguish between the two?
I'm always very careful about giving vaccines to patients who've had severe allergic reactions. So if you've had, because we give influenza vaccines yearly, if you've had an allergic response to a previous year of influenza, then that's a contraindication for future reuse of influenza vaccines again. The pneumonia, actually, we haven't seen, but I guess it's really possible to get an allergic reaction. So if you're talking about the every 5 years and you're going to have a redose, but you had a severe allergic reaction, then that's also a contraindication.
May kontraindikasyon po ba sa pagbigay ng vaccine ng anti-pneumonia at ng anti-flu?
Oo. Bali po, ordinarily wala. We just don't want to give the vaccines when persons are very ill. Diba? When they come in very sick, when they're coming to the hospital, people think that's an opportunity for you to vaccinate, di ba? Kasi andun na sila sa ospital. But normally, parang you prefer that they're otherwise healthy coming in for just a checkup. So that's a better time to give the vaccine. So ang totoong contraindications would be patients who are very highly ill. Yung konting-konting sinat-sinat, tapos you know that once lang siya pupunta sa clinic and maybe hindi na siya babalik ulit, baka gusto mo na siya bakunahan.
Okay.
Yun.
Pero so kung mild lang, okay.
Oo. Pero kung you can convince the patient na, sige, balik ka na lang in 2 weeks when you're stronger, then that's a preferred action.
It's just like in pedia patients, like they always say, let's not vaccinate when they have coughs, colds, fever.
Well, actually, yung cough and cold, again, relative yun eh. Kasi, you know, sa mga patients kasi, hindi kasi natural at even at this time, hindi pa natural that patients come in just for their shots. Di ba? It's a little bit more natural for children pediatric kasi that's how we grew up. But lolas coming in to just get their shots, parang hindi pa eh. So sometimes you want to take advantage of them being in your clinic. So when they have this very mild illnesses, like konting sipon, konting ubo, bigay mo na rin. Pero ang contraindication are very ill patients.
Do you still recommend an elderly to have zoster vaccine even if no history of prior varicella?
Oh, it doesn't, there's no guidance to say na, ano, don't give for those who didn't have varicella in the past, yung primary varicella. Yeah. So, all adults, 50 and above.
And can the 4 recommended vaccines for adults be given on the same day?
Theoretically, yes, but
So
maybe
one
you
on each
shouldn't
arm
do it
and the
kasi
buttocks.
it's the Tdap tends to be a little bit painful. So, painful siya. Hindi naman nagkakos ng fever, pero more painful. Siguro i-stagger over a year. I tell them, come back in 2 months, come back. The recommendations of the PISMID in general is you can give doses simultaneously during the same visit, and then space them out after a month, then give the next one. Parang masakit naman masyado.
Sabay-sabay, okay. My mom is already 73 years old. Doctor recommended zoster vaccine. Is she going to experience fever after the vaccine?
Usually no. Usually no po. But it's always possible. I mean, that's one of but not the incidence is not high.
And what if the elderly forgot the brand of pneumococcal vaccine he or she received and has no available documents? What are
Maybe you ask how much did he pay for it. So
the pricing will determine.
The lifetime, the Prevnar 13 tends to be syempre significantly mas mahal than the every 5 years. Okay. In fact, if you're senior, you can go and ask your either city hall or the barangays kasi DOH has included it. Diba? There's a partnership with the DOH, and some barangays or almost all the barangays offer it.
Okay.
So check it
I was
out.
going to ask you that. Ano yung program by the DOH for our elderly? Kasi syempre economics.
So right now, what I know of is the offering of pneumococcal 23 every 5 years for elderly patients.
And the flu vaccine, is it also offered by DOH?
No, the flu vaccine is usually offered to in the workplaces kasi that's where they see the burden, di ba? You want to stop absenteeism from flu-like illness, but it's not yet offered by government.
Okay. And there's a question here, do dosages differ between a young adult and an elderly?
Young adult, the same formulation. It's the same vaccine. Yeah.
Can PCV13 be used for adults? I think they're referring to the less than 50 years old.
The PCV13, less than 50 years old, that's indicated for if a person who is not yet 50 pero may sakit siya, HIV patients with cancers, patients with chronic kidney disease on dialysis, people whose quote-unquote immune system is expectedly lower than usual. So even before you reach the age of 50 or 60, go ahead and get the vaccine.
And what zoster vaccine is available in the Philippines? I think she's asking about the brand.
The brand, used to be the brand was Zostavax, but I think we're expecting a new brand. Pero hindi ko pa alam.
Okay. Someone is asking, kindly repeat guidelines for Tdap vaccination for the elderly. And is zoster needed if patient had chickenpox or zoster already?
Actually, yung zoster, talagang really indicated siya for people who had chickenpox in the past. Because when you've had chickenpox in the past, di ba, you had all of this vesicular lesions, and then it goes away. But the virus would stay in your body and stay in the stay dormant or latent or inactive in your neuro system. And so these are really the ones that under, supposedly, as we grow older, the risk is higher, or when we're under stress, or we had some kind of other either physical or emotional stressors. So
Reawakening of the virus inside of you.
and it goes to a dermatome, and then it appears as very painful lesions.
Is PCV 13 given once in a lifetime?
Yes, as an adult, yes.
Regarding the other question kanina, kindly repeat daw the TDAP
TDAP.
recommendation.
When you're elderly, di ba it used to be called DPP when we were younger. And then they just changed the formulation of the TDAP, of the pertussis part. So, kaya naging TDAP siya, activated pertussis. So, as a child, we should have received it at 2, 4, and 6 months, di ba? Yun yung masakit, nagkakos ng lagnat sa babies. Okay? And after that, we should have had a booster when we go to school, and then every 10 years thereafter. Okay. So the recommendation is after the first series, as an adult, we should receive at least one TDAP, and then after that, we can just get the TD, yung tetanus toxoid, every 10 years.
Ano po mas maganda na vaccine pag nagkaroon po ng PTB, tuberculosis history? Pneumococcal vaccine po ba or influenza vaccine?
Ang pinaka-best answer po dyan ay pareho. So, yung definitely influenza, and then PTB kasi is not listed as dun sa mga infections or conditions that will benefit from giving it even before the age of 50. Hindi naka-indicate ng TB So, influenza definitely, kung less than 50 pa po siya, pwedeng influenza lang every year. If 50 or older na yung patient na nagka-TB, then both influenza every year, and then pneumococcal vaccine as we discussed, yung once lifetime, and then the other one every 5 years.
Hello, when can we give vaccines in cancer patients who would undergo chemotherapy? How many days, weeks, or months prior to the start of the chemo?
So, yeah, that's best no. When we're preparing for chemo, then that's the best time to give the vaccines. When your cells are not yet very weak, para when you still are able to produce through the pathway na nakita natin, your T cells and your B cells are still able to produce the antibodies and the memory cells. So that's the best time. I don't think there's an exact number of days or months or weeks before. Pero I would say begin giving it mga 6 weeks before the vaccine to give you enough time to for the device sa cascade of immunologic responses to give your body enough time to do that. Not the night before the chemo, so weeks before.
How different is Zostavax from Shingrix? Do I need Shingrix if I got a dose of Zostavax?
Shingrix is the new brand of Zostavax. If I got a dose of Zostavax before, no more.
Okay. Not included in your lecture, but there's somebody who's asking, could HPV vaccine be given to an elderly? Especially for those who are at high risk, and how effective will HPV vaccine be in this age group?
Yung HPV vaccine po kasi, ang ang nasa indications niya ay from 9 years old to
Yes,
mga
40.
26 years old. So, supposedly, when we're elderly already, we've been exposed to it. So, the benefit may is not guaranteed anymore. If you say at high risk, I guess that means meron pa siyang mga
Partners?
new partners.
At 84.
Oo, at 84. Baka hindi na niya po kailangan eh. But if you feel it's very important, HPV vaccines, just that there is enough time for the patient to stay in the clinic for a while. Kasi HPV vaccine, di ba, we observe the patient for a few minutes after the vaccination. Yeah. So, so baka hindi na kailangan po ng HPV.
HPV. Okay. How safe are the zoster vaccines?
Mm, there hasn't been, ano kaya yung tinatanong nyo? In general, yes, they are safe.
Siguro tinatanong niya, what do you expect us? What do you watch out for? Like
Oo.
the day after?
If you're asking whether it will cause the zoster to come out, we haven't heard of that occurrence at all. Zoster because yun nga, it's again pag mga elderly kasi, just give time for the patient to be just observed in the clinic. We don't really expect a lot of major really bad side effects, pero yung medyo nahihilo, pwedeng merong ganun eh. So, but in general, it's safe.
I think this is a common thing that comes to mind. What about the pricing of the vaccines? Kasi syempre, considering paano nila schedule how to get vaccinated. So what about the pricing of those 4 vaccines? Like, ano yung kailangan nilang itabi just to be able to get vaccinated?
So, depends on, I think, where you get the vaccine. So, ang pinakamahal dyan ay yung varicella vaccine. So, it's
Which is
around
one lifetime naman.
So, that's around mga 7,000, ano? Mga ganun.
Okay.
And then the pneumococcal vaccines, the lifetime, yung Prevenar 13 is anywhere from 4 to 5,000 pesos or even higher for some. The pneumonia every 5 years, the Pneumovax 23, is usually mga 2 to 3,000, and the flu vaccines
which is
are
annual.
mga between siguro 800 to 1,500, something like that.
Okay. That was the last question because of time constraints. Thank you for all those questions. And once again, thank you, Dr. Berpa, for enlightening us with your answers.
Thank you very much.
Okay, in summary, we learned from the webinar today the importance of vaccines irregardless of the age group. I think most importantly, the economics of vaccination, especially among the elderly, the importance of having them vaccinated because you will save a lot rather than have them be really afflicted with all of these infectious diseases. With that, we would like to thank Dr. Anina Burbach for taking time out of her busy schedule and sharing her expertise with us today. Please stay tuned for some reminders.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Aging and Longevity Medical Webinars team of the Mu Sigma Phi sorority would like to thank our partners, the UP College of Medicine, UP Medical Foundation, and the Mu Sigma Phi Foundation. We are also grateful to support from the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, UP Manila Information Management Service, and DOST ASTI, and the PRC Board of Nursing. Most of all, we thank you, our participants, for spending your lunch hour with us. To receive your certificates of attendance, kindly answer the evaluation form by visiting the link on your screen within 2 days. The certificates will be emailed to your registered email addresses within 2 to 4 weeks. Here is a quick view of the schedule of our upcoming webinars. For more details and updates, please check our Facebook page at facebook.com/agingwebinars and our Twitter timeline at twitter.com/agingwebinars. Today's webinar recording and all webinar recordings may be viewed at YouTube at Aging Webinars channel. Please join us again on our upcoming webinar as seen on your screen. Our next webinar will be about hearing loss and will be held on August 9. Our webinar on asthma and COPD in the elderly was moved from July 26 to September 6. We are announcing the launch of the OB Pearls book. Get your copies now. We would also like to invite you to attend the UP Med webinars every Wednesdays.